Part 1: The Psychology of Routine and the Identity Hook. Let me ask you a question that most people are too afraid to answer honestly. How many times have you looked at your reflection in a dark phone screen at 2 a.m., feeling that cold, hollow pit in your stomach, and whispered the same desperate lie, "Tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day I finally fix my life." You envisioned this cinematic version of yourself, waking up at 5 a.m., fueled by pure ambition, crushing hours of deep study, and finally becoming the person you were meant to be. But then tomorrow arrives, the alarm screams, and in a split second, that version of you dies. You hit snooze, you scroll, you drown in notifications. Suddenly, the sun is down again, and you are trapped in a cycle of silent failure that is slowly eroding your potential. Welcome to Times for Growth, Time is Gold, where we turn those wasted seconds into a legacy. If you are tired of being a spectator in your own life, hit that subscribe button right now. Join our community of high performers and help us keep creating the tools you need to reclaim your future. Your support is the engine that keeps this channel running. The truth is, you aren't failing because you lack intelligence. You are failing because you are fighting a biological war with a broken weapon. We've been fed this toxic idea of hustle culture, that you need to suffer for 18 hours a day to win. That is a lie. That is a recipe for a mental breakdown. Real power isn't found in intensity. It is found in the architecture of your day. Your brain is a high-performance machine, yet you're running it on a corrupted operating system. Most students are just busy being ineffective, trading their long-term dreams for short-term hits of dopamine. But what if I told you there is a hidden rhythm to your biology? A specific structural blueprint that, once unlocked, makes discipline feel as natural as breathing? We aren't just talking about a schedule, we are talking about an identity shift. Stick with me until the very end, because the secret we'll reveal in the final minutes isn't just about studying, it's about how to finally stop sabotaging your own greatness. Before we dive into the master routine, I want you to stop and think about where you stand right now. Be honest with yourself in the comments below. Which statement feels more like your reality? A. I have the ambition, but I lack the system to stay consistent. B. I have the system, but I struggle to find the inner drive to start. Type A or B in the comments. Your honesty is the first step toward growth. Part 2: The Biological Prime Time, Morning Mastery. Once you've identified the cracks in your foundation, the next step isn't just to work harder, but to align your efforts with the invisible biological tides that govern your brain. This brings us to the most sacred window of your day, the biological prime time. Most students treat the morning like a burden to be avoided. But in reality, it is a narrow corridor of cognitive gold. You don't need to torture yourself with a 4 a.m. wake-up call that leaves you groggy and resentful. The true sweet spot lies between 5:30 and 7 a.m., a window where the rest of the world is still asleep, and the digital noise of the planet hasn't yet reached a fever pitch. In these early hours, your brain is experiencing what scientists call the cortisol awakening response. This isn't just about feeling awake. It's about a natural surge of hormones designed to prepare your mind for challenges. But you must be careful, because this fragile state is easily shattered the moment you reach for your phone to check Instagram or email. You are essentially short-circuiting your brain. You are forcing your mind into a reactive, high-stress mode before it has even had a chance to stabilize. Instead of looking at a screen, look at the sun, open your curtains and let natural light hit your retinas. This stops the production of melatonin and tells your internal clock that the race has begun. Think of your body as a high-powered router and your brain as the device trying to connect. If the router hasn't been powered on, the device is useless. This is why light movement is non-negotiable. I'm not talking about an hour of heavy lifting. I'm talking about 5 minutes of stretching or yoga to get the blood flowing. When you move, you increase the flow of oxygen to your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain. Without this, you are trying to solve complex problems with a brain that is still half submerged in sleep. Now, with your router online, you enter the deep work phase. This is where you face your frog, the most difficult, intimidating subject on your plate. Whether it's advanced calculus, organic chemistry, or complex coding, this is the time to attack. In the morning, your willpower is at its peak. You haven't yet exhausted your decision fatigue quota on what to eat or what to wear. Using the Pomodoro technique, 50 minutes of absolute monastic focus followed by 10 minutes of silence, allows you to dive into a flow state that is impossible to achieve at midnight. 1 hour of this high-intensity morning focus is neurologically superior to 3 hours of exhausted staring at a page late at night. Finally, remember that your brain is a biological organ that literally eats energy. It consumes nearly 20% of your metabolic resources. If you skip breakfast, you are asking a high-performance engine to run on fumes. Fuel yourself with complex carbohydrates and proteins, oats, eggs, or nuts, to ensure a steady release of glucose rather than a sugary spike and crash. And hydrate. Dehydration mimics the symptoms of brain fog and fatigue so perfectly that most students mistake thirst for a lack of intelligence. Feed the machine, respect the light, and master the morning, because how you spend your first 2 hours determines whether you will lead the day or be led by it. Part 3: The Midday Pivot, Afternoon Slump and Active Learning. But even the most disciplined morning cannot protect you from the inevitable shift in your biology that occurs as the sun climbs to its peak, leading you directly into the most dangerous territory of a student's day, the afternoon slump. Around 1 o'clock or 2 p.m., that morning fire begins to flicker, and a heavy fog-like lethargy starts to settle over your consciousness. Most students see this drop in energy as a personal failure or a sign of laziness. But it is actually a biological phenomenon known as postprandial somnolence. When you consume a heavy, carb-loaded lunch, your body diverts its most precious resource, blood flow, away from your brain and toward your digestive system. You are effectively unplugging your cognitive power to process a sandwich. To navigate this, you must treat your afternoon meal as tactical fuel, not a reward. Opt for lean proteins and greens that provide a slow, steady burn of energy rather than the violent spike and crash of processed sugars. If the wall of fatigue feels insurmountable, do not try to power through it with sheer willpower. That is a battle you will lose. Instead, employ the NASA-validated strategy of the power nap. A strict 20-minute reset is the cognitive equivalent of hitting the refresh button on a frozen browser. Anything longer will pull you into deep sleep, leaving you groggy for hours. But a sharp 20-minute pause clears the adenosine buildup in your brain and restores your alertness. If napping isn't an option, a 10-minute walk in the fresh air serves as a manual override, forcing oxygen back into your system and signaling to your nervous system that the workday is not yet over. This middle portion of the day is also where your strategy for learning must fundamentally shift from absorption to application. In the morning, you were a surgeon, performing deep, delicate work. In the afternoon, you must become a builder. This is not the time for heavy theory or reading dense new chapters, as your focus is too fragile. Instead, lean into active learning. Use this time for hands-on tasks, solve math problems, draft essay outlines, or work through past exam papers. The act of doing creates a different kind of engagement that keeps your mind tethered to the task even when your energy is dipping. Stop being a passive vessel in your lectures or study sessions. If you are just transcribing a professor's words, you are practicing calligraphy, not learning. You must process information in real time by translating it into your own vernacular. Ask yourself why this concept matters or how it connects to what you learned last week. This is the difference between throwing seeds on a concrete floor and planting them in fertile soil. By aligning your afternoon tasks with your lower energy state, focusing on practice, application, and active repetition. Part 4: The Physical and Creative Recharge, Evening Flow. As the sun begins to dip and the heavy lifting of your academic day draws to a close, you must resist the urge to simply collapse into the digital void. For this transition holds the key to your long-term mental resilience. This is the hour of the evening flow, a critical period designed to flush the accumulated stress from your nervous system and prepare your brain for the final stage of memory consolidation. By late afternoon, your prefrontal cortex is exhausted, and your levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, have likely peaked from hours of intense focus. To clear this cognitive sludge, you must engage in physical movement. This is not about vanity or hitting a fitness goal, it is about neurochemistry. When you run, swim, or even dance, your brain releases a specialized protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Scientists literally refer to this as miracle grow for the brain because it repairs damaged neurons and facilitates the growth of new ones. Physical exertion in the evening acts as a hydraulic press, pushing out the tension of the day and making room for clarity. Once the body has been awakened, you must allow the mind to breathe through creative exploration. The highest performing students in the world are rarely those who spend every waking second staring at a textbook. They are the ones who understand that creativity is the ultimate reset button. Whether you pick up a guitar, sketch in a journal, or experiment with a new recipe, you are engaging in divergent thinking. This process pulls you out of the rigid, analytical, convergent mode required for exams and allows your subconscious to start making unexpected connections between the facts you learned earlier. This creative play is the antidote to burnout. It reminds you that you are a human being with passions, not just a machine designed to process data. As you transition back into a calm state, the evening should conclude with light revision. This is the gentle art of closing open loops. Spend 30 minutes reviewing the day's highlights, not to memorize new details, but to signal to your brain that this information is worth keeping. By moving your body and then nourishing your soul through creativity, you transform the evening from a period of exhaustion into a powerful stage of recovery, ensuring that when you finally close your eyes, you do so with a sense of profound accomplishment rather than a mind frayed by unfinished business. Part 5: The Digital Sunset and the Save Button, Night Routine. While the creative mind thrives in the freedom of the evening, the final victory of your day is won or lost in the quiet moments before your head hits the pillow, where you must transition from the noise of the world to the sanctuary of sleep. This is the stage of the digital sunset, a non-negotiable boundary between your ambition and your recovery. In our modern age, we are constantly assaulted by blue light from screens that mimic the high noon sun, tricking your brain into suppressing melatonin and keeping your nervous system in a state of artificial alertness. To reclaim your rest, you must initiate a blackout at least 30 minutes before bed. Replace the dopamine-driven chaos of social media with the low-stimulation ritual of reading a physical book or journaling. This isn't just about relaxation, it is a tactical brain dump. By writing down your 3 most critical tasks for tomorrow, you externalize your anxieties and give your subconscious permission to shut down. Knowing the plan is already secure, you must understand one fundamental truth: sleep is not a luxury. It is the save button for your intellect. While you sleep, your brain's glymphatic system flushes out metabolic waste, and your hippocampus works tirelessly to convert short-term fragments of study into long-term crystalline memory. If you cut your sleep short, you are literally deleting the progress you worked so hard to achieve during the day. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of quality rest, honoring the biological necessity of repair. As you drift off, remember that consistency will always outperform intensity. It is the steady, quiet discipline of this routine that builds a life of freedom. Today is finished, the work is saved, and tomorrow you will wake up not as a victim of your habits, but as the master of your destiny.